After my husband's death, the lawyer handed me the keys to his forbidden farm and said, "It's yours now." I was ready to sell it, but something inside me urged me to visit it first. The moment I turned the key and opened the door, my heart stopped. What I saw inside, dear friends, before I start sharing my story, I'd love to know which country are you watching from? Comment below. And have you ever faced a betrayal like this in your life? Share your experience in the comments because sometimes the deepest truths are hidden in silence. Hello, friend. My name is Emily Benson. I am 58 years old, living in the quiet town of Red Lodge, Montana. My late husband, Richard, was a quiet, meticulous man, full of secrets that I never knew. He always forbade me from going near his farmhouse outside Billings, claiming it was too risky, too remote. When he passed away, the lawyer handed me the keys and said, "It's yours now." At first, I thought I'd sell it quickly and forget about it, but something inside me pulled me to visit to see what Richard had hidden from me all these years. The moment I stepped inside, the air was thick, heavy with silence. Every corner held the echo of his life, old letters, dusty furniture, and on a table, neatly stacked diaries addressed to me. I opened the first one, and as I read, I realized Richard's love had always been quiet, hidden behind his words and actions. But then the entries took a dark turn. Secrets, confessions, and betrayals I never imagined. My heart pounded, a mixture of shock, grief, and curiosity. I couldn't stop reading each page, revealing more of the man I thought I knew. And then the last page, a confession that changed everything I believed about our life together. As I held the last page of Richard's diary in my trembling hands, a cold draft swept through the farmhouse, making the candle flames flicker wildly. The room smelled of old wood and forgotten secrets, and I felt as though the house itself was alive, whispering warnings I couldn't yet understand. The diary revealed things I had never imagined. Richard had meticulously documented not only his love for me, but also the hidden rivalries and betrayals he had encountered throughout our lives. My mind reeled as I read about my father's business being sabotaged, orchestrated cleverly so that Richard could marry me without obstacles. Every word cut deeper, a mixture of grief and disbelief overwhelming my senses. Yet beneath the shock, a strange sense of curiosity took hold. I had to know why he had kept all this hidden, why he had allowed me to live my life unaware of these truths. I wandered from room to room, finding objects and letters meticulously labeled, each revealing more about the man behind the husband I thought I knew. A locked chest in the corner caught my attention, and I hesitated, feeling the weight of anticipation pressing on my chest. Inside, I found photographs, old contracts, and letters written in Richard's hand, each one documenting his strategic decisions that had impacted not only our family, but the community around Red Lodge. The letters hinted at friendships broken, small betrayals hidden behind smiles, and the lengths he had gone to protect me from truths he feared I couldn't handle. Yet intertwined with these confessions were moments of tenderness and unwavering care, secret gifts, anonymous notes left for me to find, moments when his love shone through despite the shadows of manipulation. As night fell, I realized the farmhouse was no longer just a place, it was a map of Richard's mind, each object and diary entry a clue to understanding him fully, unturned lists to is myths of manipulate. Yes, not my grief transformed into a determination. I would not leave this place untouched, nor would I ignore the lessons buried within its walls. Somewhere deep inside, I felt that by unraveling Richard's hidden life, I could reclaim not only the farmhouse, but also a sense of closure and justice for the life we shared, hidden behind layers of secrecy and love. The moment I stepped fully into the farmhouse, the air grew heavier, almost suffocating, as if the walls themselves remembered every secret Richard had kept. Dust hung in the sunlight, filtering through cracked windows, and the floorboards creaked beneath my cautious steps. I ran my fingers over the edges of furniture that seemed frozen in time, each piece whispering fragments of memories I had never witnessed. On the mantelpiece, an old clock ticked irregularly, its sound echoing like a heartbeat, reminding me of the life that had once pulsed here. Then I saw them, neatly stacked diaries, bound in leather, with my name delicately etched on each cover. My hands shook as I reached for the topmost one, the leather warm under my fingers, as if it had absorbed Richard's very essence. I opened it and began to read, the words flowing like a secret river, revealing a side of him I had never known. Every sentence spoke of his silent love, the way he had cared for me without showing it, small acts hidden in the corners of our life together. But the diaries also carried shadows, confessions of decisions that had changed everything. My father's business, the fortunes of people we knew in Red Lodge, even neighbors and Billings, all were meticulously documented with Richard's quiet interventions. My heart ached at first, not from anger, but from shock and betrayal. How could the man I loved so deeply, who had whispered forever in private moments, harbor such secrets? Yet beneath my hurt, a strange fascination took over. I needed to understand, to see the mind of the man behind the husband I thought I knew. As I wandered through the farmhouse, each room revealed a new layer of his life. In the kitchen, faded letters tucked behind the cabinets spoke of kindnesses no one else would ever know. Recipes he had perfected for me, notes reminding me to rest, to take care of myself. These small gestures made me smile through tears. But the living room held darker truths, photographs, letters, and contracts hidden beneath cushions and under rugs, detailing actions that had manipulated outcomes around our lives. Richard had kept track of everyone and everything, not out of malice, but to protect me, or so he wrote. His words were meticulous, precise, yet tinged with regret. And then I found the locked chest in the corner of the study. My pulse quickened as I knelt before it, brushing away cobwebs, feeling the weight of anticipation pressing down on my chest. The key, tucked in an envelope addressed to me, had been waiting for this moment. I turned it slowly, the lock clicking like a distant gunshot in the silence. Inside lay stacks of photographs, old ledgers, letters sealed with wax, and a single journal, thicker than the others, which seemed to hum with his presence. I opened it, and the pages revealed confessions that made my hands freeze. Richard had orchestrated certain events in our life, choices that seemed innocent at the time but had far-reaching consequences. He had sabotaged potential rivals to ensure our marriage, protected me from family disputes, and even influenced neighbors in subtle ways I had never noticed. The shock of understanding the scale of his actions left me breathless. I stumbled back, feeling the walls close in, yet I could not put the journal down. Each entry carried his emotions, his regrets, and his love, a love so deeply hidden that only now in death it revealed itself fully. I realized that for all his secrets, his heart had been devoted to me, carefully orchestrating life so that I would never feel harm, even as he walked the line between moral ambiguity and protection. My emotions surged in waves, grief for his death, awe at his cleverness, and a pang of fear for the power he wielded even in absence. As night fell, the farmhouse transformed. Shadows stretched long across the floor, flickering in the candlelight I had lit to keep the darkness from swallowing me. The diaries and letters seemed to breathe whispering secrets of the past into the present. I felt a strange connection with Richard, as if he were guiding me through this revelation, nudging me to understand his choices. A sense of both dread and responsibility settled over me. I knew I could walk away, sell the property, and pretend I had never uncovered this hidden layer of our life. But I felt that this was more than just a house or a collection of secrets. It was a map of his soul, a legacy that demanded understanding. Then I noticed it, a series of drawings tucked in the corner of the chest, maps of the farmhouse grounds, notes about the land, and sketches of classrooms and community areas. A chill ran down my spine. Richard had not only left me a home, but had imagined a future for it, one that went beyond our personal lives. He had envisioned the farmhouse as a place of learning, a space where knowledge and truth could flourish, perhaps even making amends for the shadows he had cast. My heart swelled with a mixture of awe and sadness. Where was a man who had loved silently, acted strategically, and yet hoped for redemption in ways I had never imagined? I spent hours reading, examining each artifact, connecting the dots between his private actions and the public life I had known. By the time I laid the last journal down, dawn was breaking over Red Lodge, Montana. The first rays of sunlight illuminated the farmhouse in golden light, highlighting the dust mote dancing in the air like tiny stars. I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was not merely a house filled with secrets. It was a place to honor Richard's hidden intentions, to transform the space into something meaningful beyond personal grief. I made a vow to myself I would restore the farmhouse, but not as it was. I would create a school, a haven of learning and understanding where every hidden truth could teach and guide. And somewhere deep inside, I sensed Richard's spirit quietly approving my decision, whispering forgiveness and pride into the empty room. Stopped the days after my discovery at the farmhouse were filled with restless nights and haunted thoughts. I could not stop imagining Richard's meticulous planning, the way every detail in the diaries had been orchestrated to reveal itself only after his death. It was as if he had designed a game, leaving me to navigate the labyrinth of secrets he had woven around our life. Each morning, I walked through the overgrown garden, tracing paths he had marked in faint pencil sketches I found in the journals. The air smelled of damp earth and pine, and I felt his presence in every creaking branch, every rustle of leaves. The farmhouse, though abandoned, seemed alive, almost breathing, waiting for me to uncover the next piece of its story. One evening, as I explored the attic, I discovered a small trunk tucked beneath a pile of old blankets. The lock was brittle, rusted from years of neglect, but the key had been taped inside the envelope along with the other journals. I held my breath as I opened it, revealing a collection of letters tied with faded ribbons and several photographs I did not recognize. The letters were addressed to me, though written long before I had even imagined reading them. Richard had chronicled his every thought, his every regret, his every hope for our future. Some were tender, speaking of his love for me in ways he had never uttered aloud, while others were confessions, admissions of mistakes, manipulations, and hidden actions he had taken to protect our life together, and sometimes to secure it in ways I would never have understood while he was alive. The photographs were even more revealing. They showed moments of my life I barely remembered, captured by Richard's watchful eyes. He had documented celebrations, quiet mornings, and even arguments, always with a note on the back explaining his perspective, his fears, or his intentions. Some images were of the farmhouse grounds themselves, marked with annotations about repairs, hidden spaces, and potential classrooms. It became clear that Richard's vision extended beyond love. He had imagined a legacy that combined his affection for me with a deeper purpose for the land he had once forbidden me to enter. As I read through the letters and examined the photographs, a shiver ran down my spine. There was one letter that stood out, addressed to no one but written as if confessing to a higher power. In it, Richard admitted to orchestrating certain hardships in our life, sabotaging opportunities, influencing business outcomes, and manipulating relationships to ensure I would be safe and yet remain dependent on the love he silently offered. My heart twisted with a mix of fury and gratitude. How could a man I thought I knew so completely harbor such secrets? And yet, how could I deny the depth of his devotion, carefully hidden under layers of strategy and mystery? One night, as the wind howled outside and shadows danced on the walls, I heard the faintest creak upstairs, a sound I could not attribute to the wind. My pulse quickened. For a moment, I thought I was imagining it, but then the sound came again, deliberate and slow, as if someone or something were moving through the attic. I hesitated, then climbed the narrow staircase, clutching a lantern I had lit earlier. The light flickered over boxes, trunks, and furniture shrouded in dust, casting long, menacing shadows. And then I saw it, a small, half-open diary resting atop an old trunk I had overlooked before. The cover was worn, the leather brittle, yet it seemed to hum with anticipation, inviting me to uncover the secrets within. I opened the diary and gasped. The entries were different from the others, more urgent, more confessional, almost like a warning. Richard wrote of an old business rival who had once tried to harm me, a neighbor who had plotted against our family, and a stranger who had visited the farmhouse years ago under suspicious circumstances. He had documented every detail, every interaction, every choice, not for revenge, but as a record of protection. And yet within those same pages, there were hints of guilt, of regret, of a man haunted by the consequences of his own actions. My hands trembled as I turned each page, the lantern light catching on words that made my stomach churn with anticipation and unease. Days turned into weeks as I immersed myself in Richard's world. I discovered hidden rooms behind false walls, secret compartments beneath the floorboards, and annotations in the diaries indicating plans for a school, community gatherings, and even a small library. The farmhouse was more than a home. It was a blueprint for redemption, a physical manifestation of Richard's desire to atone for mistakes while leaving a lasting legacy. And amidst it all, his love for me radiated, patient, quiet, unwavering, waiting for me to finally understand. But then came the twist I had not anticipated. One afternoon, while exploring the basement, I found a locked safe embedded into the stone wall. Unlike the other discoveries, this one emanated a sense of danger. The safe had no key, no note, nothing indicating its contents, except for a faint, almost imperceptible etching. My initials and Richard's. I realized with a jolt that whatever was inside was meant only for me, meant to reveal a truth that could either heal or destroy everything I thought I knew. My hands shook as I ran my fingers over the cold metal, feeling the weight of decades of secrets pressing against my fingertips. The air seemed to thicken, the farmhouse itself holding its breath as I contemplated whether to open it immediately or wait until I could summon the courage to face whatever Richard had left behind. I decided to wait until nightfall. The farmhouse at night was alive in a way it had never been during the day. Shadows moved like living entities, whispering secrets through the creaking walls and the rustling of trees outside. I lit candles, placed them around the basement, and finally, with a deep breath, cracked the safe open. Inside were bundles of letters, photographs, and a single envelope marked for Emily only. My heart raced as I pulled out the envelope and unfolded the letter. Richard's handwriting filled the page, his words carefully measured yet filled with raw emotion. He admitted truths I had suspected, confessions of mistakes, admissions of guilt, and declarations of love that I had never heard in life, but now felt in every fiber of my being. By the time I finished reading, the first light of dawn was breaking through the basement window. I sat there, overwhelmed by grief, awe, and a strange sense of understanding. Richard had loved me silently, protected me fiercely, and left me a legacy far beyond anything I could have imagined. And yet he had challenged me to confront the past, to understand the full extent of life's complexities, and to decide how I would carry forward the lessons embedded in the farmhouse's walls. As I emerged from the basement. The morning sun illuminated the dust motes dancing in the air, and I knew that this was only the beginning. The farmhouse, the diaries, and Richard's secrets would guide me, teach me, and ultimately transform my life in ways I had never expected. The farmhouse now felt less like an abandoned relic and more like a living entity, breathing secrets through its creaking floors and shadowed corners. Each morning, I woke to the memory of Richard's letters, each word pressing on my heart with an urgency I could not ignore. I spent hours in the sunlit kitchen, surrounded by dusty jars and peeling wallpaper, reading passages from the journals aloud, trying to piece together the life my husband had orchestrated beyond the veil of silence he had maintained in our marriage. He had always been reserved, almost imperceptibly distant, yet these diaries revealed a man deeply involved in every nuance of my existence, carefully planning and watching bird people, ensuring I remained protected even from the smallest misstep. As I wandered the farmhouse's expansive hallways, I discovered more hidden spaces, each meticulously documented with Richard's annotations. One room, long, sealed, and covered in cobwebs, contained shelves stacked with old ledgers, maps, and boxes of letters marked with years dating back decades. Some were addressed to people I did not recognize, others to me, but in a manner that suggested he had been preparing a narrative for my eyes alone. The meticulousness was overwhelming, but I could feel the love behind every stroke of his pen. He had been building a story, a framework of understanding to reveal the man behind the mask he wore during our life together. Late one evening, as the wind rattled the old windows and the distant hills echoed with the cries of coyotes, I stumbled upon a letter that made my blood run cold. It was addressed to me, but the tone was urgent, almost fearful. Richard wrote of a neighbor who had once plotted to take advantage of our family, of hidden dangers he had countered silently, and of a betrayal within his closest circle. I realized that his silence in life had not been apathy, but strategy, shielding me from threats I had never imagined. My hands trembled as I read, feeling a mix of fear, awe, and an undeniable sense of connection with a man I had thought I knew completely. The diary entries grew darker as I continued, revealing layers of Richard's guilt, not just about past decisions, but also about the very nature of our relationship. He admitted that certain hardships I had faced were in part engineered to teach me resilience, to prepare me for a life that would inevitably be touched by sorrow and disappointment. The realization hit me with the force of a storm. The man I had lived with for decades had been my protector and my mentor in ways I had never comprehended. It was both comforting and unsettling, as if I were peering into the mind of a stranger who had been intimately intertwined with my life in the corner of the study. I found an old typewriter and a stack of papers, unfinished letters, perhaps drafts for me, or perhaps for a world beyond our little town of Red Lodge. I sat down, running my fingers over the keys, feeling the weight of his intentions. Every page I read seemed to pull me deeper into a narrative of love, guilt, and redemption. He had meticulously chronicled not only our life, but also the impact of his actions on those around us, documenting mistakes, successes, and the subtle manipulations he had employed to guide the lives of everyone he cared for. The suspense in the air grew palpable as I discovered a small locked drawer in the desk. My heart raced. This farmhouse, which had once seemed merely a forbidden space, now felt alive with purpose, almost sentient. The key, taped under the desk for safekeeping, turned easily, revealing documents that left me both horrified and enlightened. Richard had left evidence of his intricate plans, moral dilemmas he had faced, and confessions that revealed the depth of his remorse and love. Each piece of paper was a puzzle piece, and the only one alive to complete the picture, was tasked with understanding the full scope of his intentions. One night, as the moonlight streamed through the tall windows, I noticed shadows moving in a way that did not align with the furniture. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but then a soft whisper echoed from the hall, almost like a voice I knew but could not identify. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Was it Richard's lingering presence guiding me through his final revelations, or was it the house itself, alive with the weight of decades of secrets? I shivered, the mixture of fear and anticipation making my every sense acute. Despite the suspense, I pressed on. Waste a lot of time on. I walked through the gardens Richard had meticulously planned, noting the hidden paths and the small plaques with cryptic messages. Each step revealed his careful orchestration, his desire to leave not only memories, but lessons. I realized that he had prepared me, teaching me through letters, photographs, and hidden compartments, how to see the world with awareness, how to navigate the past, and ultimately how to find peace in his absence. His love, though silent in life, now spoke louder than words could ever convey. By the end of the fourth week, I had uncovered enough to understand the depth of Richard's foresight. He had prepared a narrative, a guide, and a legacy, one that would allow me to comprehend the man he was, the love he had, and the guilt he bore. Each discovery was both a thrill and a burden, revealing that even in death, he had orchestrated a web of secrets designed to challenge, protect, and ultimately transform me. The farmhouse was no longer merely a home. It had become a living testament to a life of love, hidden truths, and the suspenseful unraveling of a story that was as dangerous as it was beautiful. By the time the fifth week arrived, the farmhouse no longer felt like a place of mystery. It felt like a labyrinth designed specifically for me. Each room, a chapter, each shadow, a message. One rainy afternoon, as the Montana wind howled outside, I stumbled upon a narrow staircase concealed behind a tall bookshelf in the library. The wood was old, the hinges groaning as I pushed it open, revealing a steep, dimly lit stairway descending into darkness. My pulse raced. I hesitated, the suspense almost tangible, but curiosity, that unyielding force that had brought me here, propelled me downward. At the bottom, I found a hidden cellar. The smell of earth and old wood mingled with something faintly metallic. Lining the walls were rows of glass jars filled with old letters, photographs, and trinkets. Each jar had a small label, some with dates, others with cryptic notes. For Emily, understand, when the time comes, truths you must see. I realized that Richard had been preparing this secret archive for decades, anticipating a moment when I would be ready to uncover his full truth. A chill ran down my spine. The mixture of love, guilt, and secrecy was overwhelming. Among the jars, I found a leather-bound journal that differed from the others, thicker, more personal. Its cover bore my initials, EB, etched in Richard's precise handwriting. The first page was a letter written on the day he died, explaining that this cellar was his final confession. He revealed secrets that would shatter my perception of him and our life together. Hidden financial dealings, old rivalries, and even regrets about how he had manipulated events to keep me close. Yet, beneath it all, there was an undeniable raw love, the kind he had never shown while alive. The kind he had never shown while alive. The kind he had never shown while alive. Hours passed as I read, my mind oscillating between anger, sorrow, and awe. One entry described a betrayal I had never suspected. A friend of his who had attempted to take advantage of our family wealth. Richard had not only thwarted the plot, but had documented it meticulously so I could understand the dangers he had shielded me from. Another entry revealed a more personal twist. Richard admitted he had felt immense guilt over decisions that hurt me indirectly, believing that love sometimes required sacrifice, even when it meant hiding the truth. The suspense grew as I reached the middle of the journal. There were instructions, almost like a scavenger hunt, guiding me to hidden compartments in the farmhouse, under floorboards, behind paintings, and even in the garden shed. Each clue was a step into his mind, revealing his careful orchestration and the depth of his understanding of me. I felt as if I were walking through his memories and deciphering the life he had crafted with precision and love, and yet laced with secrets that left me questioning every memory we had shared. One discovery made my breath catch. Behind a false panel in the cellar wall was a small box containing a key, an envelope, and a photograph. The photograph was of young girl smiling, holding hands with Richard. The envelope, addressed simply to Emily, contained a confession, not of guilt, but of longing. He had loved her as one loves family, as one loves the innocence of life, yet he had hidden this from me to protect our marriage and family. The suspense of the moment was tangible. I realized that the man I thought I knew had multiple layers, each designed to protect, teach, and challenge me, even after his death. As night fell and shadows stretched across the cellar, I understood the depth of his foresight. The farmhouse was not just a home or a relic, it was a living diary, a stage upon which his love, guilt, and secretive brilliance were laid bare. I felt a strange connection, one that went beyond grief. It was as if he were guiding me, whispering through the pages, teaching me to reconcile anger with understanding, betrayal with forgiveness. The last few entries hinted at something larger, a purpose beyond understanding him alone. Richard had envisioned the farmhouse becoming a place of learning, a sanctuary where truth, love, and resilience could be shared. He had left instructions for me to consider turning it into a school, a place where lessons of life, morality, and courage could be taught. The suspense of what I might find next was exhilarating. Each revelation left me hungry for the next, yet terrified of the truths that might further upend my understanding of him. By the end of the day, I was exhausted but invigorated. The cellar, once hidden and mysterious, had become the epicenter of his final legacy. Richard had left a path for me to follow, one that demanded courage, patience, and insight. I knew that the story was far from over. The farmhouse still held countless secrets, each waiting for me to uncover them. And as I closed the journal and carefully returned it to its place, a cold gust of wind rattled the cellar door as if echoing his silent presence. A reminder that his influence, love, and intricate web of secrets would continue to guide me long after his passing. The morning after my discovery in the cellar, the farmhouse seemed different, almost alive. Sunlight filtering through the dusty windows highlighted dust particles dancing like tiny spirits, and I felt Richard's presence more intensely than ever. I decided to follow the journal's next set of instructions, leading me to the garden shed at the back of the property. Its paint was peeling, hinges rusted, yet the door opened with an eerie creak that made my heart pound. Inside, I found old gardening tools, a stack of crates, and hidden behind a pile of dried hay, another small chest. The chest was locked, but beside it lay a note in Richard's handwriting. Patience is the key, Emily. Look where the sun rests at noon. I realized this was another clue, a puzzle he had designed to test my determination. As I waited for the sun to reach its mark, my mind raced with possibilities. What could he have hidden this time? Money? Letters? Or write my understanding of our life? The suspense was almost unbearable. At noon, the sunlight struck a particular crack in the wooden floor of the shed, revealing a hidden latch. With trembling hands, I lifted it and discovered a compartment containing a bundle of letters tied with a faded red ribbon. Each letter was addressed to me, yet many contained confessions that shook me to the core. Richard had written about past betrayals, not by strangers, but by people I had trusted, family members and neighbors in Red Lodge who had manipulated him, seeking to exploit our fortunes. The truth now laid bare was as heartbreaking as it was enlightening. One letter stood out. It detailed a choice Richard had made years ago to conceal his knowledge of a dangerous financial scheme that could have ruined me in order to protect me. Reading it, I felt a mix of guilt, sorrow, and admiration. He had carried this burden silently, never revealing his fear, yet orchestrating a plan that would only unfold after his death. The suspense of his foresight left me breathless. Every decision he had made now appeared as part of a meticulously designed legacy. The garden itself seemed to hold secrets as well. The next instruction led me to a stone bench under the old oak tree near the edge of the property. Beneath its weathered seat, I found a tin box filled with photographs, some of me as a child, and men box filled with photographs, some of me as a child, some of Richard alone, but most were of places I had never visited, Billings, Cody, and other towns scattered across Montana. Each photograph had annotations in his handwriting describing events I had only vaguely remembered. The suspense deepened as I realized that he had documented not just our lives, but the stories of the people around us, every betrayal, every kindness, every secret. I spent hours piecing together the photographs, letters, and notes, creating a timeline of events that spanned decades. Richard had not just been my husband, he had been a guardian of history, a silent protector, ensuring that truth would survive even after he was gone. The thrill of discovery was intoxicating, yet the darkness behind some of his secrets weighed heavily on me. Betrayals I had never imagined were now laid bare, and I had to reconcile my love for him with the shadows of his past decisions. As evening fell, I ventured back into the main house, feeling the weight of his presence in every creak of the floorboards. The farmhouse, once a silent relic, had become a living storybook, and I was both the reader and the protagonist. Each room revealed new twists. A drawer with old receipts proving he had secretly paid off debts for neighbors, a locked cupboard with documents detailing long forgotten agreements, and a painting behind which he had hidden yet another note. The suspense never waned. Each discovery demanded attention, thought, and emotional reckoning. By the end of the day, I sat at the kitchen table, exhausted but exhilarated. I realized that Richard's intention was not just to reveal the past, but to teach me resilience, patience, and the importance of understanding before judgment. The farmhouse was his ultimate legacy, a labyrinth of love, secrets, and moral lessons waiting for me to navigate. The suspense was far from over, for I knew there were still many rooms unexplored, many clues unexamined, and many revelations yet to shake my world. That night, as I prepared for bed, I felt a strange sense of calm. The farmhouse was no longer intimidating. It had become a place of connection, a bridge between the life I had known and the truths I was now uncovering. I realized that my journey was only beginning. Each day would bring new discoveries, new emotions, and new challenges. Richard's presence lingered, guiding me silently, reminding me that love and truth often hide in shadows, waiting for the brave to uncover them. The next morning, a fog had settled over Red Lodge, shrouding the farmhouse in a gray, eerie veil. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I stepped outside, following the trail Richard's notes had led me to yesterday. The instructions were cryptic. Seek the shadows where the past hides, Emily. My heart pounded, anticipation mixing with fear. The orchard behind the house, long overgrown and wild, seemed the obvious place. Each tree cast strange, elongated shadows in the mist, making the familiar land feel like a foreign world. As I walked carefully through the orchard, I stumbled upon an old rusted water pump. It was ordinary at first glance, but a small carved symbol on its base caught my eye. Richard's handwriting etched into the metal, a simple star with a circle around it. I realized this was another clue. Bending down, I discovered a hidden compartment beneath the pump containing a small weathered box. My hands trembled as I opened it. revealing a collection of letters and photographs I had never seen before. The letters told the story of Richard's younger days, a past filled with choices that weighed on him, decisions that had affected people I had trusted. One letter described a betrayal by someone I had called a friend, someone who had tried to manipulate him to gain access to our family wealth. The guilt and frustration in his words were palpable, yet he had kept silent all those years, choosing to protect me instead. The suspense gripped me. Each page seemed more dangerous and intimate than the last. Among the letters was a photograph of a small cabin near Cody, Montana, with a note, "Some truths are safer left undisturbed, some must be uncovered." It became clear that Richard had left a trail of secrets across multiple locations, all tied to our life and his efforts to shield me. The thrill of the mystery was intoxicating. I felt as though I was following a treasure map, each discovery bringing me closer to understanding his mind, his love, and the dark truths he had carried silently. As I explored the orchard further, I discovered another hidden compartment beneath a loose stone. This one contained old tapes, videotapes of Richard speaking addressed to me. I hesitated before playing the first one. The screen flickered to life, and there he was, my husband's face filled with both love and sorrow. "Emily," he said softly, "if you are seeing this, then you have found my secrets. Know that every choice I made was to protect you. Even when it pained me, hearing his voice, feeling the weight of his words, I was overcome with emotion. Tears streamed down my face as I watched him recount stories I had never known, mistakes he had made, people he had deceived to protect me. The suspense was intense. His confessions were like pieces of a puzzle, each revelation changing my understanding of him, our marriage, and the people around us. Some were shocking, some heartbreaking, but all were a testament to his complexity and love. The day wore on, and I found myself drawn back inside the farmhouse, unable to stop thinking about the tapes and letters. I realized that Richard had designed this elaborate journey not just as a revelation, but as a way to teach me patience, discernment, and forgiveness. Every secret, every twist, every suspenseful clue had a purpose to prepare me for the ultimate truth, the one I was yet to discover. As night fell, the farmhouse felt alive with whispers of the past. Shadows moved in the corners of my vision. The wind rattled the windows, and I sensed Richard's presence everywhere. Each discovery made me question what I knew about love, betrayal, and loyalty. The suspense was addictive, each clue pulling me deeper into his intricate web of secrets. I knew that the journey was far from over. More revelations awaited, more emotions would surface, and more choices would have to be made. Before I went to bed, I penned a few thoughts in my own journal, feeling the weight of Richard's legacy pressing upon me. I knew that by morning, I would need to face yet another puzzle, another hidden truth, and another piece of the man I thought I knew. The farmhouse had become a labyrinth of love, guilt, and revelation, and I was the only one who could navigate it. The next morning, a thick mist rolled over Red Lodge, blanketing the farmhouse in a soft, ghostly gray. I woke with a sense of purpose, the letters and tapes from Richard weighing on my mind. Each revelation from the orchard and hidden compartments had left me both stunned and strangely empowered. There was still one last secret I hadn't uncovered, the one Richard had hinted would finally set my heart free. Following the trail he had left in his final diary, I stepped into the barn behind the farmhouse. Sunlight pierced through the cracks in the roof, casting jagged shadows across the dusty floor. In the center, a small trunk sat untouched. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. Inside, I found a series of old photographs, each depicting moments of my life that Richard had secretly documented. Birthdays, anniversaries, quiet evenings, moments of love and care I had never fully appreciated while he was alive. Among the photographs, a letter addressed directly to me sat carefully folded. I opened it and read aloud, "Emily, if you are reading this, it means you have come to understand the depth of my love, my failures, and my intentions. I know I never said these words out loud, but I loved you more than life itself. Every secret, every silence was to protect you and to prepare you for the woman you are now. Tears blurred my vision. His words were raw, honest, and haunting. I felt the guilt and sorrow of our shared past, but also a strange comfort. In that moment, I realized that this journey through the farmhouse, the orchard, the letters, and the tapes was not just about discovering secrets. It was about forgiveness and closure. Richard had crafted a final goodbye, one that demanded I confront my own feelings of hurt, betrayal, and loss. I sat among the photographs, reading and rereading, feeling a sense of healing washing over me. As evening fell, I wandered into the garden one last time. The wind rustled through the trees, whispering. I placed the letters and photographs back into the trunk, closing it gently, knowing that Richard's story had become a part of me and that I would carry it forward with love, not anger. The farmhouse, once a place of mystery and suspense, had transformed into a sanctuary of reflection and understanding. Before leaving the barn, I glanced once more at the horizon. I felt Richard's presence, a quiet, comforting reminder that love, even when concealed by secrets and mistakes, can endure. I promised myself that I would honor him by living fully, by embracing the lessons hidden in the shadows of the past, and by creating a life of purpose and peace. As I locked the farmhouse behind me, the sun dipped below the mountains, casting a warm, golden glow. It was the final goodbye, but one that healed. The journey through Richard's secrets had brought me clarity, closure, and a renewed sense of strength. I knew that the farmhouse, the letters, and the tapes would always be a part of my story, a story of love, betrayal, revelation, and ultimately redemption. The morning after my final goodbye to the farmhouse, I felt a strange restlessness in my chest. Red Lodge was quiet, too quiet, almost as if the town itself was holding its breath, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that Richard's secrets weren't fully revealed. There were still whispers in the letters, hints in the photographs, and moments in the tapes I hadn't fully understood. Something told me the farmhouse had one last story to tell, and I was determined to uncover it. I returned to the attic, a place I had avoided for weeks. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight, piercing the old windows, and the wooden floorboards creaked under my weight. In a corner, hidden beneath a tarp, I discovered an old leather-bound journal that I hadn't noticed before. Its edges were frayed and the lock was broken. Opening it, I was confronted by pages filled with Richard's handwriting, raw, urgent, and filled with confessions. He had written about moments of guilt I never knew existed, times he had lied to protect me, yet in doing so had betrayed me in ways I was only beginning to understand. One entry made my heart pound. He had been aware of someone in town trying to manipulate our family's legacy, a figure whose intentions were shadowed in deceit. Richard had tried to shield me, but his silence had allowed danger to linger closer than I had imagined. As I read further, I realized that the farmhouse itself had been a stage for these hidden truths. The garden, the orchard, even the walls had been carefully chosen, hiding places for letters, objects, and messages meant to guide me. Richard's love and guilt intertwined in a way that was both suffocating and liberating. I felt the weight of his life pressing against mine, yet at the same time, I felt a strange exhilaration. The knowledge that I could now control the narrative, could face the shadows with clarity. Suddenly, a soft tapping echoed through the attic. I froze, every nerve alert. My imagination conjured shapes and figures in the corners, shadows that seemed to move with intention. I called out, but no one answered. The air was thick with tension, a silent reminder that secrets, once buried, have a way of speaking when you least expect them. I moved closer to the window, peering out at the mist curling around the trees, and I realized the past was still watching, still waiting for me to act. That night, I sat by the fireplace with the journal in my lap, piecing together the fragments of Richard's intentions, the betrayals, and the acts of love he had hidden behind silence. Each page revealed more than words. They revealed character, motive, and consequence. I felt a strange sense of communion with him, as though he were guiding me even from beyond the grave, urging me to find justice, closure, and ultimately peace. By the time the moon rose high above the mountains, I understood the truth. The farmhouse was not merely a relic of memory, but a teacher. It had taught me about forgiveness, the complexity of love, and the power of facing uncomfortable truths. The shadows, once frightening, had become companions, reminders that life's mysteries are often hidden in plain sight, waiting for the brave to uncover them. As I finally closed the journal, a cool breeze swept through the attic. It carried with it a faint scent of pine and old paper, a whisper of Richard's presence. I smiled through tears, knowing that while the past could never be undone, it could be understood, respected, and transformed into wisdom. The farmhouse had given me one last gift, the courage to confront the unknown and the clarity to step forward, unafraid, into the life that awaited me beyond the walls of memory and shadow. The days after uncovering Richard's last journal were filled with a mixture of determination and unease. Red Lodge seemed smaller now, the familiar streets somehow holding more secrets than I had realized. The farmhouse had become a second home, not just in memory, but in purpose. Every corner, every hidden note, every shadowed hallway carried pieces of Richard's life, his love, his guilt, his regrets. And now it was my turn to give those pieces meaning. I decided to honor his final wishes, though they had never been spoken aloud. I would transform the farmhouse into a place of learning and reflection, a sanctuary where young minds could come to understand the complexity of human emotion and history. The town of Billings had been skeptical at first, but as word spread, families began to bring their children, drawn by the story of a house that held lessons in love, betrayal, and forgiveness. One evening, as I was organizing the attic for what would be the first workshop, a letter slipped from a hidden compartment in the floorboards. It was addressed to me in Richard's careful, familiar handwriting. Emily, it began, I never had the courage to show you the depth of my heart while I lived, but I trust you to carry the truth forward. Remember, love and justice are not opposites. They are partners in the story we leave behind. My eyes filled with tears. His words were both a confession and a benediction. I realized then that the farmhouse was no longer just a building. It was a living testament to human complexity. Each student who came would unknowingly walk through the corridors of my life, experiencing lessons of empathy, courage, and resilience. Richard's mistakes, his secrets, and his love would continue to influence hearts long after the shadows of the past had faded. As the sun set over the Montana mountains, I walked to the orchard where Richard had planted apple trees years ago. Their branches swayed in the evening breeze, the fruit glowing in the golden light. I plucked one, feeling its weight, and whispered a silent promise to honor the past, to forgive, to teach, and to live fully. The farmhouse had given me clarity, purpose, and, in a way, redemption. I knew there would always be whispers of the past, fleeting shadows that might stir unease, but I was ready. I had learned to face them, to accept the truths they carried, and to transform them into something beautiful. The farmhouse had become a sanctuary of justice and understanding, a bridge between the shadows of yesterday and the light of tomorrow. As I closed the front door for the evening, a gentle breeze carried a faint, familiar scent, pine and old paper, reminding me that Richard's presence, though unseen, was forever intertwined with my own. I smiled a quiet, contented smile, knowing that the life I had feared was over and the life I was building now, filled with purpose and lessons, was just beginning. Before you leave, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever faced a situation where someone you trusted kept secrets that changed everything? Share your story in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real, suspenseful, and engaging stories like Emily's. Stay tuned for the next story. It's one you won't want to miss.